Hey, hi friends. Very good morning to everyone. So today we are going to see different topics. So last class we have seen about the user management, how we can create the users and what kind of privileges we need to assign to them, and different things, and followed by profile management, wherein we have seen different parameters to for the password security, as well as some parameters with respect to the resource utilization. So starting with auditing, so you know the basic meaning of auditing. It is like tracking what's happening in the organization. Uh, if it is something which is related to money auditing, there will be persons called CAs, chartered accountant, and they will be doing the calculations based on our income and based on the expenditure what we have spent and the savings, and they will finally arrive to some point wherein we are going to pay some tax. So similarly, uh, basically the process of auditing is to track down whether a person has been uh, done a mistake or not. So that's the basic point of doing auditing. So here also in database, this auditing feature is to do the same kind of activity. So if somebody is doing some unauthorized activity, so we are going to capture that information with the help of this auditing. So by default, auditing will be enabled at database level on some of the events. And to enable this auditing in the database, we have a parameter called audit underscore trail. So when we connect to database, so when we say audit underscore trail, it is going to show you that the value is DB, which means that whenever the certain information is captured through auditing, it will be stored in the database. Now, where it will store in the database? There is a base table for this, which is called as AUD dollar. So in that particular base table, the recorded information or the captured information will be there. And we have different options for this parameter. As you can see, the first option here is none. So if you don't want to have any auditing at all in your database, then you can go for this option. Or you can leave the default option, that is recording certain information into AUD dollar table. But as base tables are in cryptic format. So if you want to see the details of the captured events, then you can access a view called db underscore audit underscore trail. Then instead of having it at a database level, if you want to generate the trace files at operating system level, then you can change this parameter value to OS. So when you change the value to OS, just like how if you enable archeolog mode, archives will be generated at OS level. Similarly, when you enable or when you change this audit trail parameter to OS, then at one particular location you will see the trace files being generated. So those trace files are in human readable format. Those are text files only. So you can open and see what actions are being performed. So this is when you feel that there is some load happening in the database, because when Oracle wants to capture some information, obviously it need to there will be small performance overhead will be there. So if you feel that that is causing some performance issue to the database, then you need to change audit underscore trail parameter from database to OS. Then similarly we have DB comma extended, so which will capture further more information in the database. Or if you want to generate XML files, so that is also possible from 10G onwards. And even if you want to capture more information in XML format, we have something called XML extended. But most of the times you will be seeing either DB, which is the default value, or OS is enabled for this auditing. So the moment you say auditing, audit trail parameter is set to either DB or OS, immediately all the actions in the database will not get started auditing or will not be captured. So only certain events will be captured. So if you want to keep track of a particular activity, then you need to enable auditing on that particular uh, you know statement or on that particular table or whatever. So for this, Oracle provides you three levels of auditing. So one is statement level auditing, wherein suppose you want to record the activities, something like create table. So whoever is creating table or whoever is trying to create a table, you want to capture that information. So that is like statement level auditing. On a particular statement, you are going to start the auditing. Or the second one is schema level auditing. So you want to track entire activity of a schema. So that is also possible. And the last one, object level auditing. So let's say I want to monitor salary table. Whoever is trying to update, insert, delete, or even select, I want to capture that information. So that is possible through object level auditing. So we need to first decide in our database what activities we need to be auditing. So when I say we need to decide, it is not the DBA, because as a DBA we won't be knowing what is the application logic. So application team should tell you like what are all the statements that they want to audit, or what are all the objects they want to audit. So most of the times they will tell you that we need auditing on all these tables. So they may give you some list of tables and you need to enable auditing on that particular tables. Or if you know it is okay, then you can go ahead and enable the auditing at schema level, so that whatever the activities on that schema is being performed, everything will be captured. And as you know, whenever you shut down the database or start up the database, or you create a table space, you add a data file, you resize a data file, so all these kind of activities are already captured and put it in alert log. So it is also a kind of auditing that is happening in the database. But maybe you will not be knowing who has performed that activity, but definitely you will be knowing that somebody might have been logged in during that time, and you can able to get that information. So how about the activities performed as a sys user? So sys in the sense, sys as sysdba. So that is what generally we use to connect to the database. So if those actions were not monitored, then as a sysdba, we can also do some unauthorized activities. So which Oracle thought is not a good idea. So we have a parameter to enable auditing for sys user as well. So the parameter name is audit underscore sys underscore operations. Earlier, the value of this parameter used to be false. So which means until unless you make it true, the activities performed by sys user will not be captured. But from 12c, by default, it was made as true. So that means whatever you do as a sysdba, those things will be recorded automatically. So how to enable statement level auditing, then schema level auditing, and an object level auditing. An example was here. So if you have a look here, the first one says audit create table. So somebody tries to create a table, it will be recorded. The information will be recorded. Or somebody is trying to update salary table, or whatever the activities performed by Scott user, it will be captured. So we said audit all by Scott. So everything of the Scott user will be recorded. So like this, we have so many commands to enable or disable auditing on a particular statement or a particular table or a particular schema. So similarly, if you want to disable auditing, just you need to add a prefix called a no to the statement what you have given. So suppose if you say audit all by Scott, to disable you need to say no audit all by Scott. Or if you say audit create table, you need to say no audit create table. So those things are there. Let us go and see the thing. So now it is anyway set to DB. Now I will start auditing. Audit create table. So whoever tries to create a table, whether it is successful or failure, it will be recorded now. Now let me. Okay. So we have some users in the database. I'm going to connect as that user. So I'm just differentiating this. So I'm connecting as TMDBA010 user. So here you can see. So if you take a look here, normally create table statement should not take this much time. But here, because you have enabled auditing on this create table, so before creating the table, the information will be recorded in the database, like which user at what time, which table has been created. So all that information will be recorded. That's why, as I said, a small performance overhead will be there when you enable auditing. So now let us go and see whether really this information has been captured or not. So we can able to see that information from a view called db underscore audit underscore trail. So there are so many columns. I'm just taking some. Okay, so here if you take a look, we have actually created a table T3 by selecting the data from T1. So if you take a look here, the first initial line is talking about that you have this particular user TM prod1 on so and so date and time. Of course, we need to convert this into 2char so that we can able to see the time as well. So this TM prod1 user has created a table by the name T3, and at the same time it was also mentioned the select on table T1, because from the table only we have created this new table T3. So both the informations have been recorded in this. But as you can see, SQL text is not captured, because normally by default if you say DB, Oracle will not capture SQL text, like what is the statement user has issued. For that you need to change your auditing parameter to DB comma extended. So if you set DB comma extended, even what SQL statement that user has given, that will be recorded in the database. So like this you can do whatever the activities on this. So if you want to see on what are all the statements the auditing is enabled, then we have a view DBA statement audit options. So create table or create any table on this auditing is enabled as of now. Similarly, if you want to, you can also audit the privileges, who is giving what privilege to whom. So you can get that information. So for that you need to query this DBA priv audit options, and we have some other views as well. So this is all about auditing. So anyone have questions?
And we have multiple values like one for a DB, one for OS, like that. Enable auditing.
No, unfortunately, only one option is possible. So, with my experience, I suggest that you can better go and enable auditing at OS level. So by default, it is set to DB. So what I prefer is it is better to have it at OS level, because trace files will generate no, less size when compared to the database records. Uh, but again, because Oracle need to write or generate these trace files, again there will be small performance overhead will always be there. So that is about it. So moving to the next option, so networking with Oracle. So how a normal user from outside world will be connecting to the database server. So there are two types of connectivities from a client machine to database server. So one we call it as client server architecture, and the other one is very quite popular nowadays, that is three-tier architecture. So as you can see in the picture, we have client server architecture where multiple clients will be connecting from their desktops or laptops to the database server. So if at all we need such kind of thing, the client server architecture, then we need to have some software installed on the client machines. Like for example, uh, if you want to use Skype, then obviously you need to install a Skype software on your laptop or desktop, and using that you will be connecting to the Skype server, and then the connection will be passed on to the your friend or whoever you are talking to from the other side. So the similar thing will happen here as well. So some software we need to install on these client machines, then only the client machines will be able to connect to Oracle database. And that software what we are going to install is called as Oracle Client Software. So what we have seen initially installed is Oracle Database Software. This is Oracle Client Software. So what's the difference? The basic difference is database will not be there, except that all other required components will be installed, which will allow a machine to connect to the database server over through a network, of course. So that is what will happen in client server architecture. But let's say if there are 5,000 clients or 5,000 desktops or laptops are there. So the problem is we need to install this software in each and every machine of all these 5,000 softwares. I mean 5,000 machines. So obviously, installing or tomorrow at later point of time you want to upgrade that from one version to another version. So all these will be a little bit complicated one, and moreover it works only within the organization. So if a common public person wants to connect to the database server, so first of all, you know, any person outside of the organization, like a common user, should not be able to know whether he is connecting to the database or not. Like for example, when we are accessing some site like Amazon or whatever, so we don't know like at what point it will connect to the database and it will pick up the information, or at what point it will write the information to the database. We don't know anything. Just we'll be using a browser and then we'll be performing the activities. So this is something like for a common user, it is a additional layer of security. And for that, we have this three-tier architecture, which you are seeing the diagram in the below page. So that is the architecture that has been introduced. So here on the client side, we don't have any software to be installed. We just need one browser, and all the application code will be running on a application server, wherein whatever the code that you are using or whatever the services, application related services you want to run, or like web servers. So all this will be done in application server, and in that application server itself we will be installing Oracle client software. So which means either if it is a client server architecture or a three-tier architecture, without installing Oracle client software, it is not possible to connect to the database. So the only difference that you will observe is in client server architecture, if you have more number of machines, in all the machines you need to install Oracle client, whereas in three-tier architecture, you just need only to install it in the application server. So once we have Oracle client installed, either it is in the client server architecture or application server. So what else we need to do in order to connect to the database? So we need to do some settings, like on the database server, we need to have listener up and running, and on the application server or on the machine where you have installed Oracle client, you need to configure something called TNS names.rfi. So before we jump on to that, let's go ahead and see how we are going to install Oracle client. So Application servers again can be of different operating systems, like it could be a uh, Linux machine, or it could be a Unix flavor machine, or it could be a Windows machine as well. So anyway, on Linux we have seen how you are installing database software. Similarly, you're going to install the client software as well. I'm going to show you on Windows how we are going to install Oracle client software. So assume this desktop, whatever I am sharing right now, assume that is the application server where I have some code deployed, and I have this putty session wherein my Oracle database is installed. So now I want to connect I want to use Oracle client software in my application server, and through that I want to connect to the database. Assuming that there is no putty access. Generally, putty access, as you know, will be there only for the DBAs or the Unix administrators. So assume I am the developer. So how a developer will be connecting to the database? So first we need to download Oracle client software. So for that we can go to oracle.com website, and in the same location where you are going to download database software, so in the same location you will be having the client software as well. So as I said, I am going to show you it on Windows, so 64-bit. So I'm just clicking on this see all button. So if you scroll down a little bit, at the last you will be finding Oracle client software. And because still some machines are running on 32-bit, Oracle has given two softwares. One is client software for 32-bit, and the other one is client software for 64-bit. So according to your requirement, you can download that one. So let me check if I have it already. Okay, so I have the software already. So you need to just download it from this website. So once you download it, you will get a zip file like this. And you need to right click and say extract here, so that it is going to create a folder by the name client. So once you download it, you will be seeing a file. Once you enter into that client folder, you will see a setup file. So just you need to double click on that, so that it will start the installation. So this is the first screen on the client software, wherein you can see different options like instant client, then administrator, runtime, etc. So most of the times you will be going for administrator account only, so that you will give some options to the developers as well. So here you can just use the last option. So like already you have a user created in Windows, so you can use the last option to just use the same user, or otherwise if you want to install it in a new user, then you need to go ahead and select the second option. Or if you will install in any other existing Windows user in the same machine, then you need to provide the username and password of that. But mostly we'll be using this last option. And then you need to choose the location where you want to install. So let's say I want to install here in the F drive. So here it is saying environment variable path is having some issue. That's okay. We can check. So as I said, once we install Oracle client, then we need to configure something. So let's go and see what's that. So I'm just taking the differentiation. So this is my database server, which is running on Linux platform, and already database is there by the name proddb. And this is my client machine, which is running on Windows operating system. Okay, so in between the installation, if you get something like this, you can just click on allow access button, and here we have installed Oracle client software. So now using this Oracle client software, if we want to establish a connection on both sides, we need to have something in place. The first one is, of course, we need to have the database up and running. Then only we can establish the connectivity. So apart from that, we need to create a file called listener.aura. So just like for database, you have SP file or P file. Similarly, if you want to have listener up and running, you need to create a file called listener.aura, and in that you need to put an entry for listener. So you need to mention some details like what is the listener name, which port number it should use, to which database it should connect. All that information will be there. So we need to prepare that entry for listener. And this can be done in two ways, either using a tool called Network Configuration Assistant, or you need to go with a manual method. And of course, as you know, always using the tool is the better option. And number two, once you have configured this listener.aura, then you need to make sure that your listener is up and running. So we have some commands on starting the listener, stopping the listener, and all. We will see them. So these are the things that we need to do on the database side. So on the Oracle client side or on the client machine, similar to how you have configured listener.aura, here you need to configure other file called tnsnames.aura. And apart from this, in this file, you need to put a entry for TNS. And that's it. That is the only thing, only thing that you need to do on the client machine. So two things on the database server, and one file need to be created and an entry need to be placed in TNS names. Now again, so sorry if I got. So this tnsnames.aura file can be created again in two ways, either using a similar netca tool or using a manual method. So the installation is successful, the client installation. So now we will go ahead and configure the listener file first. So this is my database server. So here we need to go to a particular location, Oracle underscore home network admin. So that is a location where you will be having listener.aura file. So now you can see there is already a listener.aura file. So if it is generally you are doing it very first time, then you will not see this file. You need to go ahead and when you execute netca and when you try to create a new listener, then this file will be created automatically. So let me remove these files. Okay. So normally the very first time when you are doing this, you won't see any files, you will see something like this. So now you can make use of netca and you can create a new listener. So I'm just opening X Manager. So whatever the software you are using, X Manager or Xming, just use the same software. So just like how you type DBCA, so you need to enter netca so that netca will be invoked, and this is the first screen. So as you can see, the first option, listener configuration. Yes, we want to create listener. So first time, I mean, if you already know listeners are existing, then you will be having only one option, that is adding a listener. And then you need to provide the name of the listener. By default, it will take the name also as listener, but I'm going to change that to something like this. So protocol is TCP, and port number, you have the choice that you can choose any range till 90,000. So from 1500 series till 90,000 you can choose any value, but provided you need to make sure this firewall port number, sorry, this net port number is open in the firewall network. So you need to communicate with your network administrators and you need to tell them that I am going to use so and so port number. So is that fine to go ahead with it? Then your network administrator will tell you whether that port is open or not. If it is not open, then you need to request your network administrator to open that port, because until unless the port is open, connectivity will not be established. So the default port number is 1521. Either you can go with that one or you can change that port number with the help of second option. So anyway, I'm just going with the default one now. Okay, so because I just removed the file listener file, it might be giving some error. So I'm just using another port number 1525, and then it is asking whether I would like to configure another listener. No. So now the question here is, for a database, how many listeners can be there? So frankly, we can have unlimited listeners, but I mean, according to the real-time requirement, for a single database, how many listeners can support, or what will be the ideal value to have how many listeners? So normally one listener will support, even 10,000 connections also at the same time it can handle. But still, if you feel that, it is not an appropriate thing to go with it, then you can go and create 2 or 3 listeners. So, that is how it is. Like it depends on, but usually I have not seen till now in my experience, I have not seen uh, more than one listener for a database, because one listener will be having the capacity of accepting so many connections. So now once you have created this listener, as I said, the moment you run that netca, Oracle will create this file listener.ora. So the question now is, okay, I have a listener up and running. So if you want to see whether listener up and running or not at OS level, then you need to run this command ps-ef grep tns. So that will show you whether listener is up and running or not. So here you can see listener underscore prod_db is up and running. Now the point here is, okay, I created the listener, but how this listener knows that I need to talk to prod_db database, or in vice versa, how prod_db database knows that I need to or listener underscore prod_db is the one which was created for my database. So how they interact with each other, because in user connectivity, if you recollect, we have discussed a point that listener will hand over the user credentials to PMON, background process. So how that happens if they don't talk to each other? So there are two things here. Whenever you create a listener and wait for some time, like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, Oracle will do something called automatic registration. So what is this automatic registration? Automatically, Oracle will check what are all the listeners available, and it will connect, or it will tell to the database that this is the listener that you need to connect to. So if we talk about the background process in 12c, so we talked about this background process in 12c earlier. Now this responsibility lied with PMON. So what is this? As you can see, basically this listener registration process is going to register the information about the database with the listener. So earlier PMON used to do this listener registration, but now there is a separate background process called LREG. So here that LREG background process of prod_db will automatically register the information with this listener underscore prod_db. So they will just talk to each other, and they will decide that, okay, the connections should from now on go ahead with from this listener underscore prod_db. But sometimes it might create a problem. So this is automatic, you don't need to do anything, but sometimes it might create a problem. So what we are going to do is we are going to manually do the registration, and to do that manually registration in listener.ora file we need to do a small change. So when you open listener.ora, this is the entry how it will look like, and we don't require this line. So this line is not required, so I am removing that. So here if you have a look, it is just saying this is the listener name, it is using TCP protocol, it is running on so and so machine, and it is using this port number. Nowhere it is specified that it need to talk to this particular database. So we are going to now do a small change, and we are going to tell to this listener that you should listen to this database only. So before going for that, let me give one more picture. So I have this database server, and I have a database by the name ProdDB. Now I have created a listener by the name listener underscore ProdDB. So as I said, when you leave this, automatically both will get registered by themselves. You don't need to do any separate action. Let's say on this server itself, later I created some other databases, 3 more databases. What happens is, for these databases also, automatically they will get registered with the same listener, which means one listener is one listener is helping out multiple databases in the same server. That's fine. There is no issue. Listener can handle n number of connections, as I told. But what happens if this listener is down due to some reason? It got some issue, and let's say if this listener is down, then what happens? All the databases will get affected. Means any user who tries to connect to any database will not be able to connect because there is only one listener and that is down already. Instead, what if we have this architecture? So instead of having one listener for multiple databases, I will create separate listeners. So I will say this is listener for ProdDB. So this should work for only ProdDB. Then I will create another listener for database 1, another listener for database 2, and another listener for database 3. Which means for each and every database I am creating a separate listener. So in this scenario, suppose if listener underscore ProdDB is down, then other databases 1, 2, 3 will not be affected. Why? Because they are using their own listeners. So only database that will be impacted is ProdDB. The rest of the databases will continue their work as it is. So today, to just have this kind of scenario, we are going to change something in this listener.ora. And we are going to say that from now onwards, this listener underscore ProdDB listener should listen to only my database. So for that we are going to put an entry. So you are going to put an entry like this. So wherein you are going to say SID list means to which databases this listener should listen. And we are putting only one database entry, that is ProdDB, and here you need to put the listener name, whatever be the name that you are using, and of course Oracle home location. Oracle home location is little bit different because that is for 12.1, but right now we are using 12.2. So let me change that. So rest everything is same, and then save this. So this we call it as static registration. Earlier, whatever we call it as automatic registration or dynamic registration, and this is called as static registration. So once you do this change, from now onwards, this listener underscore ProdDB listener will listen to only ProdDB database. It won't listen to any other database. And because you have done some change to the listener.ora, always it is better to stop and start the listener. So how we are going to do that? We have commands, very simple command, lsnr ctl, that is listener control, stop, then your listener name. So this is going to stop the listener. Similarly, you need to say lsnr ctl start listener name to start the listener. So when you start the listener, in the status, it will show you multiple things. One is it will show you the listener name, and it will show you the version, whether it is 10G, 11G, 12C and all. And at what time and date you have started the listener, and since how long the listener is up and running, and whether tracing is enabled or not. When there are some network issues, usually we will enable the tracing. So those kind of things will tell you. And where is your listener file located? As I said, it will be under Oracle Home Network Admin location. And just like how we have alert log file, we have listener log file as well. So if you want to see something like there is some errors coming up and you need to check that, then you can go ahead and see this listener log error, listener log file. And bottom it will show you that it is going to listen to your database prod.db. So as I said, from now onwards it is going to listen to only prod.db, and this we call it as static registration. So anyone having any doubts till now? Okay, so database is up and running. We configured listener.ara file. Listener is up and running. Now that's it on the database server side. Now moving on to the client side, that is in the machine where we have installed Oracle client. As I said, we need to configure something called tnsnames.ara file. So let us go ahead and do that configuration. So what you need to do is you need to open command prompt in your Windows machine where you have installed Oracle client, and then you need to just type netca and enter. And because this is not database software, as you can see, the first option is disable. Listener configuration option is disable because this is not a database software. So you need to go with the second option, that is local net service name configuration, and click on next, then add. Then you need to provide the service name. Service name is nothing but your instance name, that is prod.db, then protocol TCP, then host name. So either you need to provide the host name of your database server, or it is always better to use the IP address. And the main important thing is port number. So whatever the port number you have used while creating the listener, the same port number you need to use over here as well. So testing is not required. We will do that later. So if you want to add another layer of security, Suppose you want to hide your database name from the end user or the developer or whoever. So you don't want to reveal the database name as ProdDB. Then here in this screen, instead of ProdDB, you can use any other name. And your developer will be using only this name in order to connect to the database. So I'm just, to show you an example, I'm just giving it as XYZ. Finish. So what happens here is, so once you have this, to test whether the connectivity is working fine. So just like to check the connectivity between two machines, you will be using ping command. So similarly, here you will be using TNS ping command. So when you say TNS ping XYZ, it should show you that it is trying to connect you to so and so machine and port number. You need to cross verify whether it is correct or not, and it should show you OK message. So if it is showing OK message, it means the connectivity is fine, means you will be able to connect to the database. So when you run this netca, how on the server side listener.ora file has been created. Similarly here also in this location tnsnames.ora file will be created. So let us open that one. So this is the file. If you open that file, you will see an entry. This we call it as TNS entry. Just like how you have the entry in listener.ora file. So here also you will be having an entry. So what it contains? It contains the protocol information, then the database server IP address and the port number through which listener is using and to which database you want to connect. But we hide this database name by just giving an alias name called XYZ. So from now onwards, generally what will happen is uh, for developers or someone, access to these files will be restricted. Means they cannot open and see what is there inside this file. When we can ask the Windows administrator to keep a restriction like that. They can use the file, but they cannot open and see what is there inside. So what we will tell to developer is, we will give one username and password, and we will be telling that XYZ is the TNS alias that you need to connect. So what they will be doing is, for example, I have given the username as tmprod1 and its password, and I said you need to use the connecting string as XYZ. Then developer will be using the this is the way how they will connect. So first they will type SQL plus, then they will use the username. So as I said, the username is tmprod, but this tmprod is residing in a remote database that is XYZ. So they will be using at the rate that XYZ. So just like how we will be using our username at the rate gmail.com. So here also it is same. And now you can see we have connected to the database from a remote machine with the help of this tmprod1 user. So here the developer or the person who is connecting will be in an assumption that the database name is XYZ, but frankly the database name is not XYZ, it is something else which they don't know. So this is another layer of security that they can provide. Okay, so coming to your question, Satish, it again depends on whether you are giving access to do the TNS ping or not. So as I said, if you are okay to allow it, you can allow them to use TNS ping command. Of course, when I understand your question. When they do TNS ping XYZ, can't they be able to see the database name? Yes, they can able to see that. So it all depends on, like, if you feel that your database is highly critical and nobody should be able to see the name, then you can do that. But generally, developers or the people who are accessing will be of the same organization or might be working for the same client. So it is okay to share the database name. Maybe, in projects like defense and all, this kind of restriction might be required. But for a general database, it is okay. So, is that clear for everyone how this connectivity will takes place and all? Okay, so this is only one way what we have seen how to connect to a database with the help of this TNS names.tora file. Apart from this, there are some other ways as well. Like we have something called EZ Connect, and apart from that, nowadays a quite popular one called Oracle Internet Directory, shortly called as OID, is in place. So tomorrow I will first talk about that OID and what is the benefit we have with that OID over this TNS names.ora file, and then we will go ahead and see the rest of the topics. So anyone having anything? I mean, any questions?
Yeah, hi Pawan, this is Satish. Um, that the VM issue is there still, so I'm not able to connect to internet inside the VM. I tried few steps, but it's not helping out.
Okay, basically from your, I mean, from your Windows, you are unable to connect to the VM machine.
Yeah, inside VM, I'm not able to connect to internet.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Sorry. Yeah, okay, from your this thing. Okay, I believe there are now. Someone has faced the similar issue. Sorry, I forgot the name actually. In our group itself.
Upon its hurry only Pawan here. I suggested him in the group also, but even then it's not working for him.
Mhm. Okay. Because sorry, I mean, I didn't see WhatsApp messages. Maybe you must be interacting. I just saw that you people are interacting there.
Yeah,
Um, sure. Okay, you can do one thing, Satish. You can just post me the screenshot or
okay.
the error what you are getting exactly. Maybe, then I can help it out. Or, I mean,
That's
what is your shift timing?
1:30 to 10:30.
Oh, okay. Because I will be free in the evening. So I thought I can
Okay,
able to connect to your machine through TeamViewer and I can help it out. Anyway, you can just send me out so that I will just have a look what exactly is the error coming.
okay. Actually, there is no error at all. So it is just not connecting to internet. So we when we give that yum package,
Hmm.
so we to get error right initially when you try to install
Yeah. Right.
uh, connect to internet. The same error I'm getting. That's it.
That's what like. Okay. Mm, So, I mean, by what time you might be reaching the home? Like 10:30 your shift ends means.
Uh, 11:30 I'll be there at home. 11:30, 11:40.
Okay. So let me see because morning, unfortunately, our shift timings are clashing.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, I'll talk to you personally in WhatsApp.
Sure, Pawan.
Okay.
And Pawan, for today's class, I have one doubt. So every SQL developer, I mean to say, every developer needs to install the client, is it? Or he can use the SQL developer to connect to the database?
Exactly. Like yes, if there are multiple machines, then yes, they need to install Oracle client on their machine. But if they are using something like a browser or something, then they can be able to. Then we need to install only in the application server. But usually, at least for the developers, yes, we need to install in every machine because generally they will be connecting directly to the database to deploy some code and all when they are developing the code and all. So that might be required. But for test engineers and other phases, for them we don't require to install this. Directly they can access the application server.
Okay. So in the three-tier architecture you explained, right? So in that application server is middleware server, is it same or
Yeah, yeah. Application server, it could be a web server or it could be a, as you said, yeah, middleware server, whatever it could be.
okay, okay, yeah, got it. Thanks, Paul. Understood.
No problem.
Hi, Pawan.
Yeah, Uday.
Yeah, I have a question regarding voice level auditing. When we enable the auditing at the voice level, where these trace files are get generated in audit dem location?
Yes, exactly. So there is a location called audit dump. So we have a parameter called audit file destination. So for example, this is the default location. Adump will be the directory name. So in this location, the files will be generated. If you want to change this, yes, you can be able to change that also.
And are these trace files are in readable format?
Yes,
How we
yes.
can read these trace files?
Just with VA
We can
editor.
read it. Okay. Okay. And for each and every event, there will be a separate trace file, right? I mean,
Exactly. For each
understand.
and every session, I mean to say. So if a user connected and in that session user has executed some five statements, for all the five statements together, there will be one trace file.
So, how I can audit if I want to audit some unauthorized entries to over to the database?
Generally, like suppose some unauthorized activity taken place, so it will be reported by the higher management usually. So, they will tell you on that particular date or during this time. Let's say on 7th September between 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, they expect, I mean, they suspect some activity happen. So we'd be looking at the trace files what have generated between 8 to 10. This is one way. But a lot of manual work is involved. Apart from that, there are some third-party softwares which usually big clients will purchase, and these softwares you just need to submit the trace files for what have generated. So once you submit the trace files, those softwares will scan those trace files, and if anything that unauthorizedly being performed, then automatically it will be reported. Like what these softwares will do, they will check what options you have enabled in the database for auditing. Suppose I enable create table, but I have not enabled alter table. But somebody is performing alter table in the database. So that will be reported, by that software that so and so person has performed alter table in the database. So then, we need to check who is trying to do that at what time. So there are lot many, ways are there to capture those things.
Okay. So you mean to say we have to enable the audit for each and every event again separately, even though we enable the auditing at OS level?
Yeah, exactly. We need to enable, as I said, different levels are there, right? Statement level, etc. So we need to,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to enable on whatever we want. Otherwise, auditing will not start.
Okay. And one more thing, it's regarding listener configuration. This static registration is required. Is it mandatory? Thing?
No, it is not mandatory. But as I said, the problem with the dynamic registration is, as I said, in the same server, if you have multiple DBs, then the dynamic registration might create a problem if the listener is down. So that's the reason usually we go with static listeners, just to avoid the impact.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pawan. That's
No,
it.
no problem. So anyone having any issues? Sorry, any questions? Okay, so let's meet tomorrow and we'll continue. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a nice day.